Steve, to do this podcast, which is something way outside of my comfort zone, you know it's required not only courage, but a fierce commitment to truth and calling. You know, more than anyone, for so long I was stuck in the grief of not having a place to share my stories anymore. I had no idea, even though you tried to tell me, that a tiny step of faith outside of my comfort zone, there was a whole world of opportunity out there. There was a prison, all right, but it was only in my own mind. The stuckness was an illusion. There were no actual gates. It was only in my own made-up story. Shame does that. Shame had me believe that my voice didn't matter unless someone else asked me to speak. And that is why I have a passion for women to overcome shame and fear and know their true worth. And that is what motivates me to share today with our listeners about Noonday Collective. I'll be buying one of the story collection pieces to remind myself of truth because I need all the reminders, because fear and shame and all those lies are so persistent and they keep showing up in different costumes. And I love that this small purchase that I'm going to make does that same thing for another woman around the world. We are all so much more connected than we stop and remember. You know, if you want to be reminded of that in song form, just stop this podcast right now and Google the song One Voice by Wailing Jennies. Noonday Collection first came onto my radar screen a few years ago when a friend of mine had a showing at her home. I loved the mission of the company. It appeared to be helping lift up women that I can only imagine how much harder it is to care for their family and take care of their family when they're trapped in these cycles of poverty. And I loved that this tiny purchase I made had a tiny piece of helping them get dignified work. So I bought a pair of these earrings that have like every color that you can possibly imagine in paper beads, and I wore them everywhere. I love colorful things. And so I wore them with basically everything every single day. And so I loved these earrings, and you know, you will not be surprised that I become so attached to these earrings that you can understand my sadness when I jumped into the lake this summer and felt one of them slip right from my ear. I know. Why didn't I take them out before I jumped in? I'd forgotten. I totally forgot to take them out. I probably was still dripping, wiping water from my phone and face as I ordered my replacement pair. You know, Steve and I have discussed the path forward on the podcast in relation to advertising and monetizing. One thing has remained constant. We only want to work with and highlight companies and products that we use or can easily, enthusiastically get behind their mission. And so that is why it was a no-brainer when Corey contacted me about possibly spotlighting and partnering with Noonday Collective. Of course I jumped at it. You know, Corey is just such an awesome human being. She's interning right now and is in school to become a licensed community chaplain. She actually works in behavioral health in the psychiatric ward right now, and interns as a chaplain. And I just love her stories, and you'll hear more about her stories soon. But she's also a Noonday ambassador on the side to support extra expenses for her family. So it helps empower her to keep doing her thing. And so I invited her over to the podcast studio, aka my bedroom, and we talked a little bit about Noonday Collective and her experience as a chaplain and the story collection. When you messaged me and said, would you at all be interested? Your podcast is all about story and you've been such an enthusiastic, encouraging support. I was like, absolutely. This is a no-brainer. This is helping empower women across the world and here in the States. And so it was a no-brainer to say yes. I really perked up and was really listening when you were talking about empowering women. Mm-hmm. And you said that there's different stories that are highlighted. Could you tell me more about the story collection that's coming out?
So the Storyline collection, yeah. So this is a specific collection that Noonday has, and it's out of East Asia, and the countries are protected for the countries are not named to protect the identities of the women, the artisans there, because they're being rescued out of the human sex trafficking industry, but they're given a dignified job, and Noonday is partnered with these workshops, these community workshops where they employ these women. And again, I mentioned they give them education, medical attention, counseling services. So really a holistic healing opportunity to heal.
Wow.
And overcome. And they also provide them a job. And so with Noonday, their artisan assembles these storyline pieces. And what's so beautiful, and I got cold chills even thinking about it, is whenever somebody purchases from the storyline collection, they will get their piece in this box, and inside the box has the name of the artisan that assembled their piece. So they can pray for the artisan, and just while they're wearing, their own story, they're remembering her story. So I just love that. And it keeps us, again, like the mission of Noonday, we're globally connected, and it's empowering women, and it's empowering not just the women artisans, but the women that wear the pieces of jewelry too. So,
I love that. It's a both and, because we're all battling against this idea of comparative suffering of, oh, how could I ever struggle or admit my struggles because there's a woman here that's like just trying their hardest to get out of the sex trafficking industry. So how could I ever be upset about XYZ?
Right.
But it's like, why are we doing this comparative suffering thing?
Yeah.
And so I love that it's focusing on empowering both women,
right,
that we're all connected. That's so beautiful. That is so beautiful.
because we all have a story.
I want to introduce you to Loney, one of the Noonday artisans. When Noonday's artisan business partners met Loney, she was working in a brothel and didn't think she was capable of more. She worried she was too old, too uneducated, and too unintelligent to work as a jewelry maker. It took almost a year of relationship building visits from our partner before Loney decided to take a chance and become an artisan. Just a few days after she joined, Loney's son was hospitalized with tuberculosis, and she needed to leave work to care for him. Our partner was able to assure her that she was a valued member of the team and that her job would still be waiting for her when she returned. After a few weeks, Loney's son recovered and was able to return to school, but Loney struggled to not fall back into her old, familiar life. She knew she didn't want to give up her chance at a new start, so she made the brave decision to choose hope for a second time and return to the workshop, where she now creates beautiful pieces for Noonday's storyline collection. Some of the styles that Loney and her friends create include belief necklace, courage necklace, destiny necklace, known and loved necklace, and heart to heart necklace.
So when I first got my kit in the mail, which is very interesting, and this connection with, being in the service and loading bombs, on aircraft, many moons ago. But when I first got my Noonday Ambassador kit in the mail, the very first piece of jewelry that I pulled out was these bullet bracelets, and it's called Bullets to Beads. It's part of our made from our Ethiopian artisans. And the story behind that is that these artisans scour the ground, farmers actually scour the ground looking for leftover gun shells from a lot of the wars and the genocides over there. And they melt them down, they turn them into beads, and then the artisans string these beads and make these beautiful jewelry, that Noonday will put in their collection to sell. But what's the story also behind that is these women in Ethiopia are HIV positive. And so they cannot, so in their community, in their culture, a lot of them are outcasted and they can't receive a fair job or fair wages and provide for their families. But it's like Noonday comes in and creates that healing, opportunity for them to partner and receive a fair wage and a dignified job, and to reclaim their story and rewrite their story. So it's like that whole redemption piece of what was meant to harm us, God will turn that around for good. And so I just cried when I pulled that out, because it just reminded me, we all have a story. So it just reminded me that connecting piece of how much, I feel like God has done inner healing work in my own life. And so at one point, I was loading, bombs onto aircraft, and now I'm selling jewelry that is a part of one woman's story of redemption that was made from gun shells.
So beautiful.
I love that connecting piece too. That
And it literally empowers you. I mean,
Yes.
basically, the money that you make empowers you and keeps you in school, and it supports the expenses that come alongside your education as you juggle a family and being a wife and being a mom. It's holding space for the needs of women around the world and holding space for the needs of women here.
Yes.
It all connects to me. It's all. So tell me how people that are listening, I have just loved digging into all of this with you. People that are listening that are interested in seeing more. Is there a Black Friday sale coming up with?
Yeah, so this week we started the annual Black Friday sale. It started Monday, and it goes all the way through next Monday, Cyber Monday. And so we have over 50% up to 75% off items right now currently on our site, and there'll be different sales dropping. So we'll have an actual Black Friday sale on Black Friday. Then we'll have Small Business Saturday sale. And then Cyber Monday, we'll have a sale, and that's when they're doing the storyline collection, 10% off. And they're also going to be introducing a new storyline piece for Cyber Monday. But yes, all week. This is the biggest sale of the year. And so, but once the items sell out, they sell out, and they kind of retire the pieces. And our artisans get busy designing and crafting and making pieces for the new spring launch.
That's so cool. I am so excited to be able to share this for listeners of Celebrate Story. We have put a link in the show notes with a storyline collection video, and I hope you'll click on it and watch it. And if you're interested in Noonday products, know that you are supporting not only the work I do on this podcast and my husband does on this podcast, but women around the world.